guys, welcome. This is Johnny from Free Range Anxiety, and what we have here is a video going over the Gazelle T4 Plus Overland Edition. And I'm out here in Ocotillo Wells with my son John, and we are setting it up. And what I'd like to go over in this video is a little bit of setup things, a little bit of specifications on the tent and some things that it has and doesn't have. And then I'd also like to talk about the reality of setting up a tent this large. So if you don't know, the T4 Plus Overland Edition is a dual vestibule tent. So it's essentially the size of a T4 Plus Overland times 2, minus a little bit of space because the gazebo side of the tent is actually flat as opposed to bowed out like a T4 hub would be. So the process that you see us doing right now, since this is the Overland Edition, it does come with a ground cloth. And my son and I are setting up the ground cloth. And what is not pictured here, which would actually take up more time, is the fact that when you get to a campsite such as this, you need to check the ground for any debris or anything that would puncture your tent or ground cloth, as well as you may want to level the ground. Like my son and I actually had to displace some sand and move it from one place to another prior to this in order to make sure that it was at least relatively level. And a pro tip for you is always make sure that wherever your head is going to lay is above your feet. If not, you're going to have a very bad headache in the morning when you wake up, if you can in fact sleep at all. So what you see us doing here after we've placed the ground cloth is we're putting in the stakes that come with this, and the stakes that actually come with the ground cloth are not the nice Overland Edition stakes. It's your standard 7 shape aluminum stakes. They're not very robust, but I'll probably upgrade those in the future. Now you see me here, I'm bringing out the actual main body of the tent. And once we get it over here, we've got to undo the strap holding it, and we're going to try to figure out which way we need the gazebo vestibule to face and align the main body of the tent up like that. Here we're just turning it around because my son noticed that we had it backwards. So once we get the tent in the correct orientation, we're just going to pull it down and slide it so that the edge of the tent matches roughly with the ground cloth. And you should note that the ground cloth will actually not be visible once the tent is set up, and this is by design. The reason that it is underneath the tent is to keep any rain or anything from hitting the ground cloth and then running under the tent. And here you can see that we are actually walking around the tent. On each wall there is a pull tab, and we're pulling that, and that extends the hub outward, which creates the rigidity of the tent. And there are 7 total hubs on this tent. There are 2 on each of the long sides, 1 on the rear or sleeping vestibule that you can see there, and then 1 on each portion of the roof. So another thing to think about with this tent, and it's something that actually adds a little bit more time than the 90-second claimed opening time for these tents or setup time for these tents by Gazelle, is the fact that not only do you have to stake it down, but in the T4 Plus, the gazebo vestibule actually has 3 poles that you have to then put in. They are not already connected to the tent and cannot be left in when you break the tent down. And these are just your standard fiberglass type tent poles, although they are pretty robust and of very good quality. And they come in 2 sections each. You put those together and then take them inside and put them up. It's 2 on either side of the gazebo entrance and 1 across the ceiling of it. And that's what I'm actually handing my son now, who's going to go inside and put those in. So while my son is putting in those poles for the gazebo side, you can see I am going to fumble around with the rainfly. And the rainfly actually adds quite a significant amount of time to the setup of the tent. And I will say that everything you see here, time-wise, is accelerated because there are two of us doing it. And it is much more difficult, not much more, but it is more difficult to set this tent up with a singular person just due to the length, especially if you have any rain or wind. It's going to make things pretty difficult, especially trying to get this rain fly up and to get it to stay on to the top of the tent. So what I'm doing now is attached to the rainfly are four more short fiberglass poles which slot into the end of the poles on the four corners of the tent. And this is what adds tension to the rainfly and I would say mainly holds it in place, but a lesson that I learned is the rainfly does in fact come with a great number of tie down loops on the outside of it. And if you are expecting anything over, I would say 5 to 10 mile an hour wind, especially if you're going to have heavy gusts, I would recommend using some tie line and staking down the fly. Because what we found happens is if you look at the tent in the middle on the lengthways portion of the tent where the hubs actually come back in toward the tent, in the roof, if enough wind hits that portion, it will actually blow that in and make your tent have a really nasty lean to it. And we believe that this will be mitigated by actually tying the rainfly out and adding tension to that. I did a short test the night after you see us camping here, and it seemed to mitigate that. So what you see me doing here, the reason I'm under the rainfly like that is the rainfly actually has a bunch of tie tassels in case you wanted to roll it up and you essentially tie it to itself. Well, during windy conditions or even just a little bit of a cross breeze, those tassels hang down and they will rub with the breeze on the outside of the tent, and it sounds like a creature pawing at the tent all night if you leave that. Now, some people this may not bother, but sleep is pretty hard to come by for me in the best of situations, and I was not able to have another night of that. So I am going under there and tying all of those little tassels into knots to keep them from hanging down. After that, we're just going around and staking everything. You can see that the rainfly on the sides actually, you will see it gets staked out and pulled taut. What I did find is that on chilly nights, it's actually better to stake it straight down to leave less of an opening if you're concerned about keeping the heat inside the tent. It actually does improve the amount of heat loss you have due to, I guess, convection from the wind. So here you can see my son and I are just going around and staking everything down and finalizing the setup of the tent. So you can see that this definitely took us longer than 90 seconds. Now we can say that, it's going to take more just because it's bigger than a standard T4, so I think that's fair. Plus we added the ground cloth, maybe some time subtracted because there's two of us. If you were doing this solo, it would probably take a bit longer. And another thing to remember is this is only the second time that we've ever set up this tent. So we're still working out our processes as well. So there's definitely time to be shaved. But I just really wanted to give everybody a realistic expectation of a true setup of this tent, not just popping the sidewalls out and calling it good. I do apologize if the video quality is bad, although I do have a decent camera. I am not very experienced with the settings, and I hope to improve that in the future. And if you'd like to see some more stuff, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel. And you guys have a wonderful week. Thanks for watching.